we're going to back up just slightly. When we left off on Wednesday, we had gotten to page 1691, and Hamlet was talking about, the king killed my father, blah, 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 blah. I want to back up to the beginning of that scene. Okay, Act 5, scene 2, page 1690. Hamlet and Horatio enter. They're in a hall in the castle. And Hamlet says, let's see here. He's talking about when he was on board the ship on the way to England. And he says, something in my heart wouldn't let me sleep. So, he says, sir, in my heart there was a kind of fighting that would not let me sleep. Methought I lay worse than the mutinies is what that word is. Hold on a second. Mutinies in the bilboes. Rashly, and praise be rashness for it, let us know, our indiscretion sometimes serves us well when our deep plots do pall. Now, look at the glosses that you have for there. Okay? Mutants in the bilboes, mutineers in shackles. Rashly goes with line 12. So, rashly what? Rashly up from my cabin. That's quickly up from his cabin. Okay? Go down to plots do Paul, line 9. Paul, fail. Our plots do fail. One of his speeches earlier, he talked about how what? Thought casts over the resolution, the color of resolution, and sicklies o'er it. Okay? So he says, our indiscretion sometimes serves us well when our deep plots do fail. And that should learn us. He's using learn there as teach. That should teach us. There's a divinity that shapes our ends. Rough hew them how we will. Hamlet means ultimately, God is in control. There is some kind of providential force out there that determines what our ends are. Ends meaning both death and what our purposes are. Okay? Rough hew them how we will. Rough hew. We go about the daily aspects of our life. And we think we know what our purposes are. He's saying this divinity knows really what our purposes are. Here's a biblical example. I should have talked about this with my first class. I did. Biblical example. The story of Joseph, had the coat of many colors given to him by his father Jacob. He had a bunch of brothers, 11 brothers, and what do the brothers do? They sell him into slavery. Why? Because they're jealous of him. Okay? He gets sold into slavery into Egypt. So he goes off to Egypt where he is nothing. He rises, becomes steward of a guy's house. The guy's wife accuses him of rape. Okay? He gets thrown into prison, and he stays in that prison for years. While in the prison, a couple of guys that are also there tell him these strange dreams they have, and he interprets the dreams for them. Now, they don't know whether or not his interpretations are true or not until Pharaoh sends for the two guys, the baker and butler. And what happens to them is exactly what Joseph said in his dream, in his interpretation of the dream. So, the baker, if I remember right, is the one who's killed. The butler lives. Years later, Pharaoh's having bad dreams. His wise men can't interpret the dreams, or they can't interpret them accurately. They're interpreting them, they're just not right. And the butler goes, I knew a guy in prison. Pharaoh sends for him, tells Joseph the dream. Joseph interprets it. It happens exactly as Joseph said. Okay, big famine. Because there's a big famine, his brothers come from their land down to Egypt to get food and such. Couple things happen. Joseph finally, after 2 or 3 times where the brothers come into his presence, reveals himself. He says, I'm Joseph. I'm the one you sold off into slavery. They're amazed because he doesn't look like Joseph and he's speaking Egyptian, not Hebrew. Okay? He says, what you intended for evil, God intended for good. That's the divinity that shapes our actions. Rough hew them as we will. They rough hewed their lives. They told their father, Joseph's dead. Now they got to go back and tell their father, he's not dead, he's alive. We lied. We didn't like him. We were jealous. You showed him more love, blah, 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 blah. That's what Hamlet means. Okay? So, that should teach us there's a divinity that shapes our ends, rough hew them how we will. Horatio, yeah, I agree. So, Hamlet says, up from my cabin, rashly, what did he do? He went down to where Rosencrantz and Guildenstern were, and he pulled the packet from them. Now, the packet is the letter from Denmark to England saying, line 24, my head should be struck off. Strike off Hamlet's head. That's what it reads. Horatio, is it possible? Dennis, the king would really do that? What does Hamlet do? Here's the letter. Here it is. Read it with your own hands. Okay, so in a court of law, what would that letter become? Your Honor, this is Exhibit A, written in the king's own handwriting. This is real evidence, right? It's not hearsay. It's not what somebody else said. Okay? He goes here. Read it. You want to hear more? Yes. So Hamlet says, so what did I do? Pulled out a sheet of paper. And I wrote, he says, I devised a new commission, wrote it fair. Wrote it fair means I wrote it without any mistakes, without any scratch-throughs, without any what we would call today erasures. So it's nice and beautiful looking, like a king would either do himself personally or like he would have a scribe do. Right? And he says, you want to know what it said? Yeah. I told him, England, that without debatement further, more or less, line 45, he should the bearers put to death, not shriving time allowed. Well, who are the bearers? Rosencrantz and Guildenstern. Kill them immediately. Why? He doesn't want them to have time for shriving. He doesn't want them to be able to speak to a priest and get forgiveness of their sins before they die. Hamlet wants Rosencrantz and Guildenstern to go where? Directly to hell. How is this sealed? Why does Horatio ask, how is it sealed? He's asking, how would the King of England know that's actually a note from the King of Denmark? Every time the President of the United States gives a speech, I mean a formal speech, not, like Bush standing at the rubble of 9/11, but a formal speech. He stands at a podium, or she, stands at a podium. What's on the podium? The seal of the office of president. It's not only a sign, that seal also exists on a stamp. Okay? So that when the president issues an executive order, he signs it and it's stamped. Okay? Hamlet says, how is it sealed? Even in this, heaven was ordinate, he says. Even in this, God was totally in control. I had my father's signet in my purse. His signet, a ring with, I can pass this one around, with an image on it. Okay? Well, what do you use a ring with an image on it for? You probably, some of you may have seen, but I bet most of you have never seen. A letter sealed with wax that then has an image stamped in It's like sometimes, if any of you go into graduate school, you will have to submit transcripts. Okay? Those transcripts have to be sealed by the university. So what do? They take the envelope, they close it, and then they stamp it on the seal. So that if somebody gets that letter, steams it open, and then tries to close it, and they close it so that the lines on the seal don't perfectly match, what does the recipient know? This has been altered. This has maybe been forged. Okay? So Hamlet says, I had Dad's signet ring. So I closed it, I put the wax on, I stamped it with the ring, and what's the ring signify? Denmark. Okay? And he says, I replaced it where the other one originally was. So Guildenstern and Rosencrantz go to it. It. What's the apostrophe T? Death. They go to their death. Why, man, they did make love to this employment. They wanted this job. Did they necessarily know that they were bearing Hamlet to his death? No, they didn't. He says, but they did everything they could to get this gig. They are not near my conscience. I don't feel any guilt for them. Why? He's going to tell us in a moment. Their defeat does by their own insinuation grow. Insinuation, interference. They didn't follow whose advice that they didn't hear? Polonius's. They did what? They inserted themselves into a quarrel. The quarrel was between Hamlet and the king. 'Tis dangerous when the baser nature comes between the pass and fell incensed points of mighty opposites. Pass, the thrust, okay, and fell incensed, angry points. What language is he using? What's the metaphor? Fencing. Well, we're going to have a fencing match in just a few moments. Hamlet's introducing the language of fencing. And what happens if you try to get between two people who are fencing with unbaited rapiers? Unbaited, that is, they're not dulled. Razor sharp tips. Somebody's going to get hurt, right? And it's not going to be this person with the rapier, and it's not going to be this person with the rapier. It's going to be the person who gets in between. Notice, baser natures. Why does he call Rosencrantz and Guildenstern base? Because Hamlet and Claudius are what? They're royalty. Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, they're commoners. Commoners should not trouble themselves with the problems of royalty. Hamlet is suggesting. Mighty opposites. Horatio, what a king is this? He can't believe Claudius is like this. So, that's when Hamlet says the lines we finished off with the other day. Does it not? Think. Stand me now upon, okay, that is, become incumbent upon me. Isn't it now my obligation, my responsibility, that he that hath killed my king, whored my mother, popped in between the election and my hopes, the election, that I would be made king after Hamlet Sr.'s death, thrown out his angle for my proper life. That is, he's gone fishing for me. And with such cozenage, trickery, is it not perfect conscience to quit him with this arm? Am I not, he's saying, suggesting, guiltless to repay him with this arm? And is it not to be damned? Okay, so notice guiltless versus damned. And is it not to be damned? Turn the page. to let this canker of our nature come in further evil. Wouldn't, Hamlet is suggesting, wouldn't I rather be damned if I didn't try to stop him? Because what will Claudius do if Hamlet doesn't stop him? First of all, he's describing Claudius as what? A canker. A foulness. A rot. An ulcer. A worm, possibly, that eats at the heart of a plant. That will do what? Further evil. Where? In Denmark. If I don't stop him, who's going to? Hamlet is suggesting. Horatio. You know he's going to hear from England. He's going to find out what you did. It'll be short. That is, you're right. He'll find out pretty soon. The interim is mine. That is, from now to when he finds out, I'm in control of that. That is, it's my time to act. And a man's life's no more than to say one. What? Hamlet means a man's life is as long as saying the word one. How long does it take to say one? Half a second? Tenth of a second? He doesn't mean a man's life literally is that long. What does he mean? In the grand scheme of things, we're pretty insignificant. That's what he means. We don't last very long. It's a very biblical idea, by the way. Psalmists and the Proverbs say a man's life is like a blade of grass. Grows one day, withers the next. And I am very sorry, good Horatio, that to Laertes I forgot myself. I shouldn't have egged him on. For by the image of my cause I see the portraiture of his. What's the image of Hamlet's cause? Claudius killed my father. What's the portraiture of Laertes' cause? Hamlet killed his father. Because I see what's motivating me, I know what's motivating him. I'll court his favors. But sure, the bravery of his grief to put me into a towering passion. I'll court his favors, I will beg his forgiveness. Okay? In comes Osric. Osric says, you're welcome back to Denmark. Hamlet says, thank you. Okay? And Osric says, Laertes is also newly come to court. He's a wonderful person, blah, 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 blah. And Osric says, Laertes wants to challenge you to a friendly fencing match. Hamlet says, okay, what kind of weapons? 132. What's his weapon? Rapier and dagger. So, rapier in one hand, dagger in the other. Hamlet, okay. And Osric says, and the king has wagered with him. The king has bet 6 Barbary horses. Okay? And 6 rapiers and poniards with their signs, etc., etc. Skip a bit. Osric leaves. And we have Hamlet and Horatio talking. And 182, bottom of 1694. Horatio tells Hamlet, you're going to lose this. Laertes is going to win. Hamlet, I don't think so. Why not? Well, since he went into France, which was when? Act 1. Since he went into France, I have been in continual practice. Wait a second. What did Hamlet tell Rosencrantz and Guildenstern? However, when they came in, I believe it was Act 2, to ask him how he was doing. He gave that big, long speech about what a stale promontory is this world and all the uses of man and blah, 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 blah. He said, I have of late given up his daily exercise. Here he says, I've been practicing every day. Both statements cannot be true, right? So which one's true? Possibly they can both be false, but they can't both be true. Go back to the Rosencrantz and Guildenstern speech for a moment. What was Hamlet doing in that speech? Pages 1636 and following. It's Act 2, Scene 2. Okay? Hamlet asks them, line 272 or so, 271, whether you were sent for or no. Rosencrantz, what should we tell him? Hamlet, come on, I know why you're here. We were sent for. And then Hamlet goes on and talks about, he doesn't have any delight in this world and blah, 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 blah. Okay? So they tell him, we were sent for. Hamlet says a bunch of stuff to them. Tells them, he doesn't do his daily exercises. Why? Point I'm getting at is, because Hamlet knows they were sent for, that they were sent for to keep an eye on Hamlet, are we supposed to take as quote-unquote gospel truth what Hamlet tells them? No. He lies to them. Why? They're lying to him. Remember, Ophelia called him the observed of all observers. Of all observers mean everybody in Denmark sticks their noses in everybody else's business. Hamlet is the one watched by everybody else, but notice Hamlet is also watching. Okay? Here he tells Horatio, I've been practicing. Does he have any reason here to lie to Horatio? No. Does he anywhere else throughout the play, apparently, lie to Horatio? No, he doesn't. In fact, he tells Horatio, Marcellus and Bernardo, first act, if you see me acting crazy later on, don't give out that I'm acting crazy. Okay? He says, I've been practicing. I shall win at the odds. What does he mean? Okay, I might not win outright. That is, we are not on a level playing field. The king has given Hamlet odds. What does that mean? He doesn't mean that he thinks Hamlet is better than Laertes. He means he thinks Laertes is better than Hamlet. So he's giving Hamlet a handicap. Okay? And the handicap is essentially, Laertes has got to win by a certain number of points in order for Laertes to be considered the winner. Right? Hamlet. But thou wouldst not think how ill all is here about my heart. But it's okay. What does he mean? Thou wouldst not think how ill all is here. Something doesn't sit right. Hamlet is telling us. He's got a bad feeling about this. No, it's okay. It's foolery. Such a kind of gain-giving as would perhaps trouble a woman. Oh, women. They're always a misgiving. What's another word for this kind of misgiving? What do we ascribe to women that we don't ascribe to men, generally? Woman's, what's the next word? Intuition. That women know things somehow that we're too dumb, stupid, dull, unperceptive enough to pick up on. Right? Been married for, what year is this? 33 years. Little word of advice, guys. If your wife tells you she's got a bad feeling about, go with that bad feeling. Don't go, oh no, honey, it's going to be all right. Apply pure reason. Don't do that. Just happy wife, happy life. So, Horatio, notice, If your mind dislike anything, obey it. He's telling them what? Go with your gut. Pretty good rule in life. Go with your gut. Okay? Don't overthink it. He says, I'll go tell them, you're not feeling well, Hamlet. You're sick. Hamlet, now. Not a whit. We defy augury. Augury. Fortunetelling. But not fortune like, am I going to meet somebody tall, dark, and handsome? Fortune in the sense of the future. He says, we defy telling the future. We defy prophecy. We don't believe in it. Why? There's a special providence in the fall of a sparrow. Read the Gospels. Christ talks about how much God loves humanity, and he uses it as an example. He sees the fall of even a sparrow. How much more does he love you? So if God cares about when a sparrow falls out of a tree, he says, think then how much more he cares about you. Okay? If it be now, what's the it? Death. If it be now, if death be now, 'tis not to come. Duh. That's what I'd write. If a student wrote down on paper, I'd go, duh, or no, Sherlock. Really? That's logic. If death comes now, then it can't come later. Okay? If it be not to come, if it's not going to come in the future, it will be now. If it be not now, yet it will come. What is Hamlet saying about death? It's inevitable. Whether it's now, or tomorrow, or 30 years from now. Or for you guys, 50 or 60 years from now. It will come. Look at the next clause. The readiness is all. Now you got a gloss, and the gloss is kind of stupid because the gloss says all. All that matters. That's not I don't think the helpful gloss. Because the word that most students today don't really understand in that context is the word readiness. Readiness for what? Death. Being prepared for death. He says, that is everything. Well, when? Whenever it comes. And what's the problem? We don't know whether it come now or whether it come later. And that takes us back to Act 2. Oh, that this too sullied flesh would melt, thaw, resolve itself into a dew, or that the Almighty hath not fixed his cannon against self-slaughter. To be or not to be, Act 3. Okay? Hamlet, all throughout the play, is thinking about what? Death, death, death. Why? Well, partly this. He's prepared for it. He's prepared for it. It's what I argue in my Harry Potter and Lord of the Rings class. It's the whole entire theme of the Harry Potter novels, all 7 of them, not the films. Films totally change it. Let me rephrase that. The 7 Harry Potter novels as J.K. Rowling originally wrote them, not all the crap she's putting out on Twitter and Pottermore and all that nonsense. Okay? The books themselves. Why? Because we see through the arc of the books one thing repeatedly. Harry confronting death. And what he learns is how to die well. Because all throughout the books there are people who did not die well. Some of them are called ghosts. Some of them are afraid to die. Lord Voldemort. His very name, Voldemort, means flee from death. Okay? And it all builds to that scene in Book 7 where Harry walks into the Forbidden Forest, head held high, chest thrust out, because he's going to his death. And he's not being dragged kicking and screaming. He's not afraid of it. Hamlet. If it be now, 'tis not to come. If it be not to come, it will be now. If it be not now, yet it will come. The readiness is all. Since no man of aught he leaves knows, what is it to leave betimes? That is, since no man knows what comes after his death, not after in terms of the beyond, life after death kind of thing, but what comes after here on earth. He said it doesn't matter to you when you die what goes on after you on earth. What is it to leave? Betimes. Betimes means anytime. What does it matter whether I die now or 50 years from now? It's still death. All right? Let be. No. Let this happen, Horatio. Hamlet's telling us, we're building to a head. I think something's going to happen here. And so there's a table prepared. The king and queen, people of state come in. And the king says, Hamlet, come, take this hand. And he puts Laertes' hand in his. Why? They should be friends. And Hamlet says, give me your pardon, sir. That is, give me your forgiveness. I have done you wrong. But pardon it as you are a gentleman. Gentlemen, certain class of society, it's expected to forgive others. Right? This presence, that is all these people, they know something that Laertes doesn't know because he's been out of town for a while. And you must needs have heard how I am punished with a sore distraction. I've not quite been myself of late, he says. What I have done, that might your nature, honor, and exception roughly awake, I here proclaim was madness. What is what I have done? Louder? When he killed Polonius. Right? So, when I killed Polonius, that might your nature, son of Polonius, honor, the honor code, eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth kind of a thing, and exception, disapproval, you didn't want me to kill your father, might do what? It might roughly awake all those things. Hamlet's saying, you've got every right to want to kill me. But then he says this, I here proclaim was madness. What I have done was madness. First time, I believe, I might be wrong, but I don't think so. I don't think this idea shows up in the ancient Greek drama or Roman. First time in world literature / history, in the history of ideas, that we have somebody offer an insanity plea for defense. It wasn't me. It was my madness. Hamlet says, was it Hamlet wronged Laertes? No, never. Never Hamlet. If Hamlet from himself be ta'en away, and when he's not himself does wrong Laertes, then Hamlet does it not. Hamlet denies it. Polonius said to the king, if I'm wrong about Hamlet being mad for love of Ophelia, then take this from this. And he's implying here, kill me because I'm wrong. What else that implies, though, is take this from this means separate my reason from myself. It's a little indication of that theme of madness. Okay? So Hamlet says, it wasn't Hamlet. Why? It was the madness that inhabits Hamlet. Think of it almost like Hamlet is suggesting, I've got multiple personality disorder. It wasn't Hamlet, it was Fred. Fred's the crazy part. Fred went, a rat. And Hamlet said, alas, poor sir, I took thee for thy better. Who does it then? His madness. If it be so, that is, if I'm right with this idea, Hamlet is of the faction that is wrong. Why? Because Gertrude could say, Hamlet had the sword, Polonius was behind the curtain, Hamlet stabbed behind the curtain. Sure looks to me like Hamlet did it. Hamlet says, I'm the one wrong. Why? Because I, in my right mind, in my soul, wasn't there. It was the craziness that did it. That's why Hamlet is of the faction that is wrong. His madness is poor Hamlet's enemy. Take this from this, and you have what? Not Polonius. Take this from this, you don't have Hamlet. You have his madness. Sir, in this audience, let my disclaiming from a purposed evil free me so far in your most generous thoughts. That is, I am testifying to this entire audience. I never purposed evil against Claudius. I never intended to kill them. How else might we know that that may be true? Notice the two might, may. What did Hamlet say at the end of the to be or not to be speech? When Claudius and Polonius are standing behind the arras and Ophelia's out there. And at the end of that speech, he talks to Ophelia, right? He says, do you have a father? She goes, yes. Where is he? At home. Let him stay there. Let him lock up the doors. And do what? Keep his nose out of other people's business. If I'm correct in my reading of that Hamlet knows Polonius is listening, then Hamlet is telling Polonius, don't come between me and the king. And what did he do? He got between them. In fact, he got between Hamlet and his mother. He says, I have overshot the house and hurt my brother. I'm sorry, Laertes. You are my brother. Laertes, I'm satisfied in nature. Okay? Nature, he's personally satisfied. But his honor must be satisfied by the rules of the code of honor. You killed my, what is, any of you familiar with one of the greatest films of all time, Princess Bride? Inigo Montoya, to the six-fingered man. You killed my father, prepared to die. There's that part that still demands justice, that code. Right? He says, and I'm not going to be reconciled until I get what? Until I get some kind of authoritative pronouncement. That is, the government, the king, says it's resolved. He says, but until then, I do receive your offered love, like love, and will not wrong it. Will not wrong it. What does Laertes know is going to happen in the next 10 minutes? What has he already done to his foil? Or is going to do once he gets it? He's going to poison it. What does he already know Claudius is going to do to the cup of wine? He's going to poison it. So when he says, and will not wrong it, he's lying through his teeth. Right? So, Hamlet says to Laertes, they bring out the foils. Hamlet takes one. Hamlet says, I'll be your foil, Laertes. Notice, Shakespeare is using that term in the literary technique sense. He is saying, Laertes, compared to me, you are going to shine like the sun in darkness. Everybody's going to look at you and go, man, he's a good fencer. Laertes, you mock me. No, not at all. Right? So Hamlet takes a foil. Hamlet says, I understand, king, you bet against me. That is, you bet on me, but you gave great odds. He goes, well, yeah. He's better than you are. So, they each take a sword, and the king says, all right, so here's what we'll do. Every time Hamlet gets a hit, We'll have the drums go off, and we'll fire the cannons from the battle. Way to go, Hamlet. And Hamlet, I'm going to put this union in this cup, that's a gem, and I'm going to put this union in, you can drink from this. Cool. So they start. 1, Hamlet says. Laertes, no. Judgment. Osric, a hit. A very palpable hit. Because all you have to do in fencing is you got to touch the person. Certain body parts. Okay? Again, these are supposed to be baited foils. That is, there's a button on the tip so that you can't pierce. All right? So, they back off. The king says, Hamlet, take a drink. Hamlet, no, wait a while. Okay? They play again. Hamlet gets another hit. You only played a 3. Hamlet's now ahead. 2-0. I do confess it. All right? The queen, no, he won't. He's fat and scant of breath. He's fat and out of breath. Okay? So she says, here, good Hamlet, take my napkin, rub your forehead off. Oh, well, I drink to you. And she drinks from the poison cup. Okay? Laertes, my lord, I'll hit him now, that is, while Hamlet's wife, the king says, no, not now. So, Hamlet, for the 3rd, they play again. Laertes wounds Hamlet. They scuffle. Why? Because Hamlet's not supposed to be wounded. You stick somebody with a sword, they're going to get angry. So they scuffle. He takes Laertes' sword. He wounds Laertes. So now they've both been poisoned. And the queen falls. Osric, how is it, Laertes? 277. Why, as a woodcock to mine own spring, Osric. Where did we hear that before? Polonius tells Ophelia, Hamlet's tenders of love are woodcocks to catch springs. It's a trap. I am justly killed with mine own treachery. Hamlet talked about people who plot, how those plots unravel around them. How does the queen? The king? Well, she fainted because she saw you bleeding. She goes, no, Hamlet, the drink, I am poisoned. And she dies. Ho, villainy, let the door be locked. Why? What's Hamlet suggesting is going to happen? Nobody's getting out of that door until I find out who's responsible. And then, Laertes, it is here, Hamlet. Hamlet, thou art slain. No medicine in the world can do thee good, and thee there is not half an hour of life. The treacherous instrument is in thy hand, unbaited and envenomed, the foul practice hath turned itself on me. Lo, here I lie, never to rise again. Thy mother's poisoned, I can no more. The king's to blame. It's all the king's fault. Hamlet, oh, envenomed, and he pierces the king. And we hear, treason, treason. Now, is that people saying treason, treason because Hamlet stabbed the king? Or is the treason, treason because they heard what Laertes said? And the king is the one guilty of treason. Oh, yes, defend me, friends. I am but hurt. Hamlet grabs the king, if I were directing this, by the hair, pulls his head back so his mouth opens, like he's getting ready to waterboard him, and he takes that cup and he just pours all the wine into the king's mouth so that he can't help but swallow it. So now he's been poisoned by the sword and poisoned by the drink. Laertes. Hear thou, Hamlet, hear thou, incestuous, murderous, damned Dane. Drink off this potion. Is thy union here, that is the gem, but he's also punning on the word union, meaning marriage. Why? Follow my mother. Where? To death? Yes. Because I think Hamlet hopes, at least, his mother ends up where? Heaven. I don't think he wants Claudius to end up there. He's not saying follow her to heaven. Just follow her to death. Laertes, he is justly served and is a poison tempered by himself. And then what does Laertes ask for? Exchange forgiveness with me, Hamlet. Noble Hamlet. Mine and my father's death come not upon thee, nor thine on me. Why does he say this? There's a clause in the Lord's Prayer. Forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. Pray, it's like he's praying to God. Hamlet, he says, my death and my father's death be not on you. I forgive you. Why? Christ said, if you forgive men their sins, they are forgiven. I forgive you, Hamlet. Well, what else does Christ say? You will be judged as you are judged. You want forgiveness? Give forgiveness. Laertes wants forgiveness. That's why he says, don't hold my killing you against me. Hamlet, heaven make thee free of it. You're forgiven. I follow thee. I'm almost dead too. He's saying, thank you. You don't hold my sins against me. I don't hold your sin against you. I am dead, Horatio, wretched queen adieu. You that look pale and tremble at this chance that are but mutes or audience to this act. The mutes are the people on the stage. The audience is the audience. He says, had I but time, but he doesn't. So what does he ask Horatio to do? Report me, Horatio. He says, thou livest. Report me and my cause aright to the unsatisfied. Who are the unsatisfied? It's not the people in the room. It's the people outside the room who don't know what happened. Senate Judiciary Committee is going to have a hearing tomorrow. In that hearing, 2 people will testify. Maybe more, but as of right now, 2 people. The person Trump nominated to the Supreme Court and a person who's accusing him of things. Okay? Us here, everybody in the United States, all the members of the Senate Judiciary Committee, and all the people who will be in that room, except for 2, are the unsatisfied. Why? If something occurred in a room 32 years ago, who knows about it? Only the people who were in that room. They're the only ones. Because I wasn't there. I was old enough to be there, but I wasn't there. None of you were there. None of the members of the Senate Judiciary Committee were there. The person who will ask questions wasn't there. We are the unsatisfied. So why does Hamlet tell Horatio to go report what happened? Horatio is what for the events in that room? What do prosecutors really like to have? To be able to put in a witness, in the witness stand against somebody they're charging. Eyewitness accounts. Eyewitness accounts count for an awful lot. The other night, I shouldn't go on to this, but I will. The other night there was a Senate debate in Texas. Ted Cruz and this guy Beto O'Rourke. Well, Beto O'Rourke, when he was in his 20s, had a problem with drinking, and he got a DUI one night. He got a DUI one night. He's doing 75 and 45 or 55 mile an hour zone. Smashed into a truck, went into oncoming traffic, turned around, and tried to flee the scene of the accident. According to 2 eyewitnesses, one of whom stopped him with his car. Okay? In that debate, O'Rourke said, no, that never happened. I didn't try to flee the scene. And the news media is like, here's a police report with 2 eyewitness accounts. Yeah, you did. Pretty stupid to try to... Horatio is his eyewitness. Okay? Horatio, never believe it. I am more an antic Roman than a Dane. Here's yet some liquor. And your gloss tells you, what does he mean? Servants of lords in ancient Rome would die with their master. Not low level, kitchen scullery cleaners, but right-hand men of their lord soldier masters would. He's saying, nope, I'm dying with you. Hamlet, no you're not. And he drinks the poison. Why? Horatio needs to do something. He says, Horatio, what a wounded name, things standing thus unknown. If you die, nobody's going to know the truth of what happened here. Because the people calling out treason fought what? I don't think they think it's treason the king against Hamlet. It's Hamlet killed the king. And I think that's because they don't hear Laertes' speech. The speech is to Hamlet. Hamlet, I'm dying. The king did it. And the people sitting back there in the standing room, what? What did he say? But Horatio's there. What a wounded name, things standing thus unknown, shall live behind me. I will always be what? The guy who killed the king. If thou didst ever hold me in thy heart, absent thee from felicity a while, and in this harsh will draw thy breath in pain to tell my story. What's felicity? Happiness, joy. We're going to do Sophocles' Oedipus the King. Oedipus the King ends with the chorus saying, not the exact end, but it's in the final speech. Count no man happy till he is dead. Why? Another great line from Princess Bride. Life is pain, Highness. Hamlet. And in this harsh world draw thy breath in pain to tell my story. They hear a noise. Osric says, Fortinbras's there. Hamlet says, he has my dying vote. That is, Fortinbras will be the new king of Denmark. And Fortinbras comes in and goes, what the hell? Because there's dead bodies all over the place. Horatio says, I can explain, but here's what you got to do. Take the bodies, put them on a high platform, and then call all the people together. Get CNN, get MSNBC, get Fox, get all the news media. He says, and I will stand up there and I will tell the truth about what happened here. All right? And let me speak to the unknowing world, 351, how these things came about. So shall you hear what? Carnal, bloody, unnatural acts. In other words, the ratings will go through the roof. Carnal, he's talking about sex. Bloody, he's talking about murder and sex. Unnatural acts. Brother killing brother. Brother taking brother's wife. Of accidental judgments. Hamlet didn't mean to kill Claudius. Casual slaughters of deaths put on by cunning and forced cause. And in this upshot, purposes mistook fallen on the inventors. Purposes mistook. That is, they conspired, and what happens? Used Hamlet's words, the engineers were hoist with their own petard. The plot that they plotted, the bombs that they were making, boom, blew up in their faces. Fortinbras, okay, yeah, I want to hear that. And then what does he say? Because Fortinbras says, you know what? If I remember right, I've got a claim to this throne. Old, but I've got a claim. And he says, and Hamlet voted for you. That pretty much means you'll be the next king. So Fortinbras, take Hamlet's body, 4 captains, take Hamlet's body, bear him away. The others get rid of him. Why 4 captains? What kind of funeral does Hamlet get? It's like an Arlington Cemetery full military honors. Okay? Take up the body. Such a sight as this becomes the field. But here where? In a palace. It befits the field, the battlefield, but not here. This shouldn't happen. Okay, stop there, since it's 11:15. Quiz on Friday. First thing, Acts 3 through 5. And read pages 1434 through 62 for our discussion of Sophocles.